When my father-in-law came to live with me 5 years ago, I was overwhelmed by all the important decisions I had to help him make, especially the one about choosing the right Medicare plan. They got more than 100 plans alone in Minnesota, so how was I supposed to know which one was right for him? Thank goodness for the Senior Linkage Line. It's a free statewide service of the Minnesota Board on Aging in partnership with Trellis and the other area agencies on aging. They connect us to services and supports to help us find the answers we need. And honey, it's free. Did y'all hear me? Free help getting the best Medicare plan for you and your loved ones. The folks at the Senior Linkage Line, let me tell y'all something about them. They really care. They will work with you to figure out if your medications are covered. That way you know ahead of time what you're going to pay out of pocket. So do like I did. Give them a call at 800-333-2433 or log on to trellisconnects.org. And y'all best hurry up because time is running out to change your Medicare plan. You got until Tuesday, December 7th to find one that's right for you. So don't wait. Call the Senior Linkage Line today at 800-333-2433 or log on to trellisconnects.org. Let them help you like they helped me. You'll be glad you did.
You gotta find me an angel.
You're listening to the Life After Loss podcast. This show is a safe place for angel moms and angel dads who have lost a child. It's a safe place to share, cry, celebrate, and connect to a community of parents who have experienced grief and gotten through it. Here's your host, Darcea Handy.
Angel moms and dad and everyone who's all over the world joining us today. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Life After Loss podcast. Today I have something very, very special that I want to share with you all. I get questions a lot regarding these two topics because it seems like they're the same thing, but they're slightly different. And that is grief and depression. So what is it? Are you grieving or are you depressed? Some would say, you know what? Those coexist, and they do. But there are differences, and it's very important to know those differences because that plays a role in your entire health. It plays a role in your physical health, your mental well-being, everything around you, your family, how you operate on your job, whatever it is that you're doing. These two things, grief and depression, has a lot to do with how you perform every day just as a person. So I'll tell you, grief is a deep, deep sorrow, a deep pain that we feel. It's usually associated with death. Now, after I lost my son, and the angel moms and dads who are out there, you know, it is a very painful feeling to lose your child. And there's an overwhelming feeling of sadness when that happens. Not only that, but you can get into a place where you're just angry and you're frustrated all the time and you just want to stay away from people. And part of that is because people are asking you questions about the child and what happened. Everyone wants to know. And whenever you bring it up, it's sad. You want to cry. You want to roll over. You just want to get in the fetal position and sit in a corner. That's because you're probably still grieving, especially if it's been couple of months or maybe even a year or so afterwards. But here's the thing, the similarities with depression. Now, depression is just an intense feeling of sadness. Depression can come from a feeling of guilt. Either something happened or you think something that happened was your fault, or you thinking you could have done more of something, or that could have been an abrupt change in your life, a change of job, you moved to another place or something like that. Or you're preoccupied with depression, you're preoccupied with a feeling of worthlessness. It's a lot of the time, you know, you're just like, man, why do I need to get up? You know, I'm just no good to anyone. I couldn't even, you know, protect my child. You know, what is there for me to do? Or it's just prolonged difficulty functioning. Depression can get you in a place where you just can't do anything. You have the best intentions, but you can't do anything. You just don't have the energy. You don't want to put the effort up to do it. You're just there. And I can speak on it because I've been there. So two of the ways that you can deal with these are actually try to find out if you are grieving or if you have run into depression is you can go and see your doctor, talk to your doctor. There are exams available in your doctor's office to screen you for depression. They screen you for depression and they screen you for anxiety as well. Also, you can ask your physician to recommend you to, let's say, a social worker or a case manager, and they will do something with you to see what it is. But what I'm going to tell you is based on just experience. Now, I knew when I was grieving for my son because I was very, very sad all the time. I would think about him. I would hold his gown. I slept with his gown. His pillow, everything that he had in the hospital, I just had it next to me. And when I was in a state of sadness with his things, that was grief. I had different stages of grief when that would happen. I would miss him. Now, here's something that's very important for you to know. Depression can be treated. It can be treated with medication and it can be treated with therapy. Now, with grief, I want to say this, and this is probably going to surprise some of you, but when we have a deep grief, especially a loss of a child, pregnancy and infant loss of a child or parent, or just that deep loss of someone who's passed away, we don't necessarily just say, okay, my broken heart is healed. But what happens is we recover from it. We recover from grief. That's what I'm here to help you do. I'm here to help you recover from your grief and move to a healthy place of healing for your life after your loss. Now, with depression, sometimes depression has to be addressed with medication and by a health professional because with depression, sometimes there are suicidal ideations, and you're like, you know what, I just don't want to be here. Now, you all know I've shared with you all when I lost my son, I just felt like when his heart stopped beating, so should mine. Excuse me. And you know that I just felt like my son, my daughter, and myself, we should all just be together. And it was selfish to think that way because, my husband was there, but, and my family, but that's where I was at that particular time. Not only that, when I moved, I had a big transition in my life shortly after I buried him. I ended up moving to a different city and just a lot of things happened. There was a big hurricane and the job that I had was gone. So here I am. I'm in a different city. I've left my house that I built from the ground up, and I fell into a place of prolonged sadness. Now, some would say, "Oh, get up, get up." I mean, my relatives will come over and they would just say, "Get out of the bed. Why are you in the bed?" Even on Christmas, I was just in the bed. And what happened is they were like, okay, so you buried your son. I was like, that's not it. That wasn't it at that time because my time for grieving for my son is different. I will go to Forest Park Babyland where he's buried and I'll have my moments there, or I'll pull out his photo album that I have, his memory book that I've created, and I'll have my moments there. It was different. This wasn't that, okay? So what happened was I had so many changes that had gone on in my life, and it left me with a feeling of worthlessness. I felt like I've made this big move and everything in my life has changed. Everything, the job, where I was living. And I felt like my potential for being successful was just flying out of the window. And I realized I needed help. I started to get more snappy with everyone, and I would just lay in the bed. And one day I have to give big shout out to my sisters. One day my sister came over and she said, "What's wrong?" I said, "I don't know," and she just laid in the bed next to me, and I just cried. I was depressed. And I didn't realize that I was depressed. And the reason why I was depressed is because I had so many changes that happened right away. And I felt responsible for everything, which goes back to what I said, guilt. I felt guilty. I said, I've left my house and, I have a new job. I've left my job, my stable position. I've moved. Why did I do this? I've disrupted my family. We've all moved and now we're staying with relatives. And why did I do this? And I just felt like everything going on around me was my fault. And I felt like it was a self-inflicted wound. That's how I felt. So I went to see a doctor and I got the test and everything. And it was depression. It was a major depressive disorder. Now, to tie that with grief, I'll tell you this. When this was about 3 years, this was 3 years after my son passed away. But I'll tell you this about grief. Grief can turn into depression if you don't do something about it. If you don't get help or look out for resources that can, help you or make you feel better about what you're going through, that grief can turn into depression. And I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. I thought moving and doing all these brand new things were going to be great for me. And I moved and things changed. And when things started to change, I started feeling bad. And like I said, there was depression. Well, in my family, we had another loss. And then I had a relative who started buying a lot of stuff, and it made the relative feel good to buy these things. And then they stopped buying these things and they would get sad. And I said, So what happened is that person wasn't dealing with their feelings, right? They were grieving, but instead of allowing the grieving process to happen, they started replacing what they were missing with things, therefore shopping. Since they did not address the grief at that time, it spilled over into depression. It was something that turned into depression because guess what? When that family member was no longer able to buy all the things that they looked at, they didn't even use, they just bought them because they made them feel better. Then when they weren't able to do that, they were back in that sadness and they were back down and upset and crying over the family member we lost. And that is the difference between grief and depression. That family member allowed that grief, that untreated grief, to move into a place of depression. Now, of course, they didn't do it on purpose. They probably didn't even recognize that it was happening. But I'm telling you all that that is how it happens a lot of the time. We can put ourselves in a situation where we are constantly trying to replace what we've lost with something, and we think it's making us feel better. And we're like, okay, I feel good. I feel good. Okay, I'm over this. And we haven't dealt with it. We haven't dealt with your grief. And then it moves into another area and you're still sad, and pretty soon things aren't satisfying you like they used to, and you get into a place of worthlessness, and that's depression when it turns into depression. So what I want you to do is I have resources on lifeafterlossministries.com. We actually have a big suicide prevention sign on our website under resources. So if anyone is having any ideas of harming yourself or others, please go to that website and get that telephone number, and you can call if you need help. Now, if you're not feeling like you want to harm yourself or others, and you just want to deal with the pain of the grief pertaining to your loss, please feel free to give me a ring. You can reach out to me on Twitter, and I will help you with steps that help me. There are things that I did to help myself move forward in my grief so I could heal, healthy healing, so I could have a life after my loss. And that's very important. Grief and depression, they can live in the same space and occupy the same space, but that can be very, very dangerous. They are not identical. They share similarities, but they're not twins. So make sure you know the difference. Angel moms and dads, if you have any more questions, because this is a very serious topic, and I'm probably going to do a second part to this to give you more information. I don't want the video to be too long, but it's very important that you recognize the difference. And if you don't, maybe a loved one who's next to you, they may pinch your shoulder and say something to you. And loved ones, let me not forget this. If you have a loved one who's experienced a loss or a big change, they move, a new job, a divorce, anything like that, a big change in their life, and they're in the bed all the time, don't just call them lazy. Oh, you're lazy. You're lazy. You don't want to do anything. You're lazy. Sometimes they can't get up. They don't know how. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to help themselves. So you have to help them. Stay right there with them. Be there for them. Pray for them and ask them, hey, you may need to get help. And that's what I'm doing for each one of you today. Any of you who are feeling like that, or you feel like you're in a prolonged state of sadness, or you're like, why can't I get past this? Give me a call. Reach out to me at Super Angel Mom on Twitter. and let's talk about it. And let's see if you need further help. If you need professional help, there are recommendations for that too, depending on where you are. Or you can come to me and we can Zoom call and go through it together. I am here for you. And I am not just talking about something from what I've heard or just what I've read. I've read it, I've experienced it, and I've done the training on it. So I'm seriously here to help you. Grief is different from your depression. That grief, if it's prolonged sadness and it gets to a place to where you don't want to live, or you want to hurt yourself or someone else, that's depression. And that has to be taken care of. Angel moms and dads, I love each and every one of you. And like I always say, you can reach out to me, ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com. You can reach out to me at Super Angel Mom on Twitter. You can go to my Life After Loss podcast page on Facebook, and you can message me. I am here for you, and take care of yourselves and each other. Until next time.
You've been listening to Life After Loss with your host, Darcea Handy. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast for new episodes every Wednesday. For more on this program, log on to ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com.
It never fails. Every fall, I fall into a funk. Daylight savings time used to have me singing the blues until I found some help at BetterHelp.com. BetterHelp.com. It's an online resource that matches you with your own licensed professional therapist. Listen, ain't no shame in talking to somebody about how you feel. Your mom and your friends are great to talk to when you have problems. They're your go-to. But sometimes you need a professional, and that's where you need to call BetterHelp.com. Sometimes it's the only way to get your happy back. BetterHelp.com offers secure online counseling, either over the phone or via video. Now, it's not a crisis line, but BetterHelp.com has counselors who'll help you with your anger, stress, depression, or anxiety. The good news is that they're more affordable than traditional in-person counseling sessions. But you know what? If your money is funny, don't worry. BetterHelp.com even offers financial aid. Let BetterHelp.com help you get your happy back. Log on today to BetterHelp.com.